It introduced all of these challenges and trying to, as I got older, replicate the voice quality of being 11 years old or 12 years old when it started. And things got a little bit tricky in my when my voice was changing in the 2000s. It's almost easier now to replicate my 11-year-old voice than it was when I was like 16. It was like, oh my God, like my voice is breaking and all of this. I don't know if I can do it.
Everything in your journey, Sora, is connected. Though the worlds may seem far apart and out of reach, the Keyblade will serve as your guide.
Hold it right there! Uh-oh, look out! I guess there's no way we'll forget the most important memories.
Welcome to Character Select, Deadline's video series about the acting talent we see in video games and gaming-related content. I'm your host, Alexandra Del Rosario, and our guest today is Haley Joel Osment. For 20 years, he has voiced Sora, the protagonist in Square Enix's Kingdom Hearts. The long-running and popular video game franchise celebrates its 20th anniversary this year. Well, I'd love to start off. As you said, you were playing the games before, but before joining Kingdom Hearts, in the early aughts, 20 years ago, did you play a lot of video games as a kid? You were kind of a preteen growing up in the 90s, early 2000s.
I was part of that generation where like Zelda Ocarina of Time is like a big thing for us. Actually, just last night, I loaned my friend who's going to a bachelor party my vintage N64 007, Mario Kart, Mario Party 3 and everything. And I was like, you better bring this back because this has a lot of good hours logged into it. But that was kind of my introduction to video games. And then in the later 90s with like Final Fantasy 7 and everything, like I was a big fan of that. And Final Fantasy 10, which came out while we were doing the first Kingdom Hearts. And it was really crazy seeing like all the Square Enix characters like be integrated into this Disney thing. So yeah, that's kind of my experience with that.
So in addition to the Final Fantasy games and Mario Kart and Legend of Zelda, other titles or any other consoles you spent maybe too much time with?
In college, there was this thing where it's like, oh wait, like there's no parents around. We can play Halo 3 with all our friends like all night, every night. At the end of college, I was like, I cannot play these games anymore because it takes up too much of my time. Because like, I guess like going back to high school, like we used to do those LAN parties where you'd like hook up the original Halo and all those. And it's just too much fun. Yeah, those are my games.
And so Kingdom Hearts came out 2002, 20 years ago. What an incredible milestone for that. It came out when you were 14, around that age.
Yeah.
And by that time, you already had a number of incredible titles and credits under your belt. Sixth Sense, obviously, Pay It Forward, AI, Forrest Gump, which was your debut. I'm kind of curious, what made you want to try your hand at video game voice acting?
I had done a couple of voice acting things before. I think we did like Hunchback of Notre Dame #2 and everything, and Jungle Book #2. Yeah, it's just an opportunity to stretch your instrument, trying to communicate a character just using your voice. And I never could have expected at the time that it would be like a 20-year relationship with one character, which is by far the longest experience I've had with any project of any kind.
And so I'm very curious about the process of you joining it. Kingdom Hearts is a very special, I think, title in that it combined all of these worlds of the Disney movies that we grew up with into kind of a playable format, like, with, like you said, these Square Enix characters. Can you take me back, if you remember it, to that first pitch, and how was this brought up?
God, it's hard to remember the pitch, but I do remember being in the studio with Nomura-san and all these guys. And actually, the thing that stands out to me most is, especially in Kingdom Hearts 2, when the story got really, really complicated.
That was just the first step of the complex.
When the producers would come in with a whiteboard and be like, this is the flow of time, and this is, we're going to go back, and then we're going to go forward. And with the voice quality thing, where I was like, okay, at least time has passed. Like, I'm going to be able to do like an older character. And they're like, actually, no, we're going back before the first one, when he's even younger than he was the first time he did it. I was like, oh man. But that just brings me to like, it's such an incredible group of producers and animators and everything. And like working with that team in Japan was so illuminating about everything that goes into making a game like this. And it was just really, really cool.
And so was Nomura-san the first, was he the one who reached out to you, or how did you land the role, essentially, if you could remember?
Do not remember, actually. But I think it was just an offer that came to my agent at the time. And it's funny because it was an unusual project. And we took the job going like, okay, like, well, we'll see how this goes. And then as devolved, it was like, oh, this is what it is. Like as much as I love video games, I was not familiar with the sort of trajectory that would come out of a game like this. And it just became a really rewarding experience.
Mm-hmm. And so we talked about how over the years, it has gotten a little bit complex.
Please not quiz me about certain things.
No, I was going to ask you, yeah, obviously, we have the Heartless, we got the organization, and now at the end of 3, we have a whole other crew of characters that we're going to, I hope, learn about. How do you keep track of everything that, story-wise?
With Sora, I mean, there's a lot of heart in that character. So whatever's going on in the external world, just staying true to his principles. And it's a nice thing about the game where it's like, it's about friendship and about heart and all that stuff. So just staying true to that has been interesting. But the humor has kind of evolved over time. And as we got into like 3 and like 4H or 5B, I forget what the numbers are. The most recent ones, it's like the interplay between the characters has become more complicated, which I really enjoy. Yeah.
And so, like you said, this is kind of the longest, I think, relationship you've had with a character. What does that commitment to a role and that longevity for you mean? I think in voice acting and also just acting in general, it's kind of come and go with each project.
I mean, there's a responsibility that comes with it because you want to do a great service to the fans. It's funny, like I was doing theater in college, and then I did a play right after college in Philadelphia, and we would have these matinees with students from local schools to like show them theater. And we'd have a Q&A after, and it was really funny because they'd be like, "What's going on with Kingdom Hearts?" I was like, that's what kids are concerned with. So you definitely feel a responsibility to take care of that character and to make sure that it's going in a direction that everybody likes.
Mm-hmm. And again, you've been with Sora, you've been in this gaming franchise for so long. How do you think being involved in this popular title over the years has maybe informed your relationship with games and gaming? You said that it's kind of hard to dive back into the games.
It's overwhelmed me. It has really, most of all, underlined how old I am. Because kids these days, if I can, they're so good at games. And like this one, like I feel like they've done a good job at making the game accessible to all levels of players, but I am on the lower end of those players. And the fact that games like these, you need to have a notebook to like, when you're building up a character in these RPGs and everything, it's like, I don't have the bandwidth for that most of the time. But it has really given me perspective on how skilled kids have to be these days to play these games.
But are you playing games in your free time or even on set for certain projects? I'd love to hear if you brought, if you have a Switch, if anything.
Here's what I've been playing. I played, they just re-released Tony Hawk 1 and 2 for the Switch, so I've been playing that. Here's a great window into my gaming experience. Like Elden Ring came out.
Oh my gosh.
People I respect were like, you got to play this. And I was like, all right. It's very difficult. And it takes that notebook and it takes that kind of reason. But like, what am I supposed to do? Like, where am I supposed to get that metallic shield and everything? So my regimen in the past has been like in the holidays, that's when I'll like devote some time to like playing games like I used to when you can play all night and everything. But most of the time, I just can't dip a toe in because it's all consuming.
Right. Would you ever, try to sneak a round of Mario Kart in between takes?
I mean, if someone has an N64 hookup on set, like absolutely.
Yeah.
I really am looking into producing and directing things recently. I think that might be a really good strategy to have that. Actually, you know what? When I was on sitcoms in the mid 90s, I was on the Jeff Foxworthy show, and they had Mario 64 at the craft service table. And people would go over and play that. And I remember, like, for, I guess it's the baby boomer generation, seeing 2001 A Space Odyssey was like their big moment. For me, it was going into my friend's house and seeing 3D video games for the first time, seeing him play Mario 64 and going, oh my God, this is what's possible.
I guess we have to have consoles back at craft table, switches on loan, so you could just bring them back to set and then put them back at the end of the day.
When we were filming AI, they had a Dreamcast at the craft service table, and people were playing like Madden 2000. Like that was a big deal.
And so you've been in this intersection of gaming and entertainment, again, for 20 years, and very much something that I've seen growing up, like I said before. I think we're speaking at a very interesting time for that intersection, in that we're seeing numerous adaptations of beloved games like Halo, becoming a TV series, or Uncharted becoming a film. What do you think about that convergence?
I mean, it's undoubtable that like there are so many storytellers that are involved in these games, and I think it opens up a lot of possibilities. And I think there's an interplay between these games and these movies where it's like, oh, the extremely it takes like 80 hours to play some of these games, like that opens up a lot of possibilities to tell a story. With Halo, I remember there's like some really classic voice actors that have like myself been able to have a relationship with their characters over like 20 or 25 years, and I think it's beneficial for both industries.
Mm-hmm. And so that said, we're talking about adaptations. I think you know where this is going. Would you reprise Sora for a TV or film adaptation? And do you know of any discussions about that?
I do not know of any discussions about that. And it's always funny with developments about Kingdom Hearts when people are like, what's happening? I'm like, I'm literally the last step in the process. Like, not only is the game done by the time I get to it, but they've already had, and forgive me for not knowing his name, because I believe it's been the same actor the whole time, the guy who does Sora in Japanese. But that's already been done. So, yeah, I mean, if they want to do it, I think that would be incredible. Yeah.
And so this game has, as you experienced firsthand, has spawned numerous titles across various platforms, but also generations of dedicated fans who cosplay, who write fanfic, or who even memorize lines.
That was a new development too. Like seeing it at Comic-Con, going like, wow, like Riku and all these Kairi, everybody. Yeah.
What does it mean to you to be part of, this community and this culture of this kind of scope and scale?
It makes me feel really good. I mean, I'm really glad, because I know in my experience with video games, how many good times come from it. It's like, wow, like this is something people play with their friends, and getting involved with the lore and the story, like it makes me happy that people enjoy it so much.
Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to be one of those pesky college students that you previously mentioned. Have you heard anything about a potential Kingdom Hearts 4? At the end of Kingdom Hearts 3, we see that Sora is in a place that we've never seen in the franchise. Will you return for that?
I'll put it out there. Please do it. Yeah. I mean, I love playing with this character, so I hope the story continues for sure.
And so we've talked so much about, obviously Kingdom Hearts, but we'd like to talk a little bit more about acting as well. What do you have coming up, acting wise? We know that are there any updates that you have to share about certain projects? Not an artist, a film that's in the works right now, and also someone I used to know.
That's right. Those were my pandemic films. I worked on Not an Artist, which is with an incredible writer-director duo, excuse me, with Alexi Pappas and Jeremy Teicher. And Jeremy and I have some plans to make another project coming up pretty soon. And with somebody I used to know, I mean, it's such an incredible cast with Jay Ellis and Kiersey Clemens and Alison Brie, and Dave Franco directed it. And yeah, that's what's coming up next.
Awesome. Well, is there anything else that maybe hasn't been announced that, you said that you mentioned producing additional projects?
I mean, I wish I could put a name to them. Yeah, I lived in New York for 15 years, and I coincidentally moved back to LA like a month before the pandemic started. So there are some things I was going to work on then that kind of got sidelined by the global crisis, and now they're kind of getting going. So hopefully I'll have some more specific things to say soon.